making sure all this amazing equipment is still running and working.
I like chips.
Chips are delicious.
Depending on the type, but yeah, agreed.
My
Chips
midsection also likes chips.
Your midsection likes chips?
Yeah.
And you don't like your midsection because it likes chips?
Yes.
Yes. I know where that.
So thank you, Ed.
Anytime. It's once a month. It's the cheat day. Hello and welcome to another episode of Embassy Exclusive. This is a monthly supplemental show for fans of the VG Embassy Game Music Podcast. I'm Ed.
I'm Joe.
I'm Todd.
And each month we get together and share video game music, the latest news in gaming, and our grumpy baby New Year opinions on both. This is episode 53 for January 2024, and we hope you enjoy it. First episode of the new year. Happy New Year.
Right back
Not that I haven't
you.
seen you since the new year,
Yeah, but all the same.
yes. And to all the listeners out there, Happy New Year. So it's January. It's our look back at the previous year episode. Lots of cool stuff planned for today. I'm going to take a page out of Legacy Music Hour's Brent Weinbach's playbook and say we've got some top of the show business to get to before we start off. Couple things. I wanted to make sure everyone knows about the 10th anniversary reunion of Pixel Tunes radio episode, which dropped on January 28th. It was this previous Sunday. This show will probably be coming out on the 30th or so a couple days previous. You can find it on pixeltunesradio.com. Or if you're still subscribed to the Pixel Tunes RSS feed, it is still active. You can also subscribe to the Pixel Tunes RSS feed on your podcast app of your choice and listen to it. It was a huge labor of love from Mike and I. Show's over 3 hours. There's a kind of a custom intro I did, and we did a exclusive sketch at the end, and I feel like it really closed off the Pixel Tunes era on a great way. I wasn't always super happy with how the last episode ended up because just Mike and I had some stuff going on, which we get into a lot. If you want some like VH1 behind the scenes Pixel Tunes stuff, you will definitely hear all of the dirt on episode 111, the 10th anniversary reunion show. If you have friends that were Pixel Tunes radio listeners, Pixel Tunes doesn't really have any social media, so it's been hard to get the word out about it. So please let your friends know. Post links in your Discords and Twitters and Facebooks to the show when it does drop. I want to get the word out so that everybody who listened to Pixel Tunes Radio back in the day can enjoy the show. Were you guys Pixel Tunes Radio listeners?
For sure. How do you think we met?
Through Pixel Tunes Radio? Through Todd.
Well, yeah, okay, but I was listening to your show back then.
Yeah, no, I remember. And Todd, obviously, you've been on the show a couple times.
I was on the show a couple times.
Todd, I actually credit you on that episode for getting me into VGM podcasting because you introduced me to the Legacy Music Hour way back in the day. So
way back. I mean, that was a long time ago.
I don't know if I would have had the idea to start that show if it wasn't for LMH going on hiatus, and I don't know if I would have discovered LMH if you hadn't recommended it. So
I don't even remember at this point how I came across LMH those many years ago.
Yeah, you're probably on a forum somewhere, and you were like, "Hey, looks cool."
Yeah, I'll give it a listen. But I started at episode 1 and just started I started listening to it.
Oh, you started way back. So,
no. I mean, like it wasn't. I didn't listen to episode 1 when it was released.
Right.
But I'd learned of it and just started at first and just went through
crazy.
the entire backlog at the time, which I don't think was that deep at that point, maybe 30 or 40 episodes, but I went through the entire back catalog.
Was it only 30 or 40? Because they were doing weekly, weren't they, back then? It must have been pretty high.
Maybe it was more than that then. I don't, it's been so long I don't remember.
They had been around for at least a couple of years by the time you told me about them, so they must have had at least 100 episodes.
Yeah,
in.
maybe I could be wrong.
Me. You told me about it, and I started at episode 1, and there were over 100 that I had to get to, and think I listened to all of them, but I did the same thing starting at the beginning and just kept going with it.
Yeah, that's crazy. Speaking of over 100, VG Embassy episode 100 will be coming out in a couple weeks as of the release of this show, and it's something that I am very, very much looking forward to. Lots and lots of guests, lots of fun times, lots of memories of previous episodes. I probably have done more recording between the Pixel Tunes radio episode and the VG Embassy 100 episode than I've done in ages. Over the past 2 weeks, I felt like I've been on the microphone more than off the microphone. So, again, another labor of love. So I do hope you guys listen to it and enjoy it and share it. Big milestone for the VG Embassy.
Yeah, I remember when I came here a couple weeks ago to record that episode, the VG Embassy episode with you, number 99.
Yeah.
You seemed pretty fried at that point, and you still had quite a ways to go.
Yeah. It was a juggling act to get all the guests, scheduled, and when we're doing our video conferences, and people had to delay because of illness and because of going out of town, and it was an adventure, but it all came out very well. I still have the beginning and the end of the show to record, which I'll hopefully get through tomorrow. And then if luck goes my way, I can spend the entirety of next week without having to record anything and just spend time getting it all done, all the post-production, all the editing, etc., etc. Plus, I also recorded an episode of Arcane Machine last night, so it's been, like I said, more time on mic than off lately. Other than that, we've had some... we're also going to be carrying the celebration over to next month's Embassy exclusive. So, like I said, I will have a bunch of guests on the VG Embassy show, either people that have reached out to me about participating in it, folks that have been longtime patrons. If you did not get an invite onto the show, please don't take offense. It was just because we had so many people, I can only do so much editing and fit so many different guests onto the show at once. Originally, Todd and Joe were going to be a part of that show, and I had to kind of bump them because I figured they would be on Embassy exclusive that month. So I didn't have to exclude anyone else that isn't a part of my normal podcast rotation. So, Embassy exclusive episode 54 will be an extension of the 100 episode VG Embassy celebration. I urge you guys to write to me or record some voice celebrating the episode 100 with me, memories of the VG Embassy. Congratulations. I just want to make it kind of a cool, fun party to celebrate the milestone of VG Embassy. And it's just ridiculous that the 10th anniversary of my podcasting and the 100th episode of VG Embassy happened to be on back-to-back months, and it's been kind of a frazzling couple of months. So, but I'm looking forward to celebrating and just finally getting able to wind down and relax and enjoy all of the milestones that we've accomplished over these past 10 or so years. Tomorrow we're recording on the 27th, so tomorrow will be my 10-year anniversary as a VGM podcaster, which I thought was pretty cool. That being said, last thing I wanted to touch on was 2024, what the VG Embassy is going to look like. I did want to announce that the VG Embassy episodes are now available on YouTube. Basically, Google Podcasts has gone away, and they've kind of converted everything into YouTube podcasts, which is a separate section of YouTube that has podcasts, but those videos that the podcasts are in also appear with all of your regular videos as well. So if you searched for the VG Embassy on YouTube, the podcast episodes would come up. You just kind of plug in your RSS feed and it auto-uploads everything from it, which I thought was great. So now I'm in the process of going through it, adding show notes to all the episodes, adding the cover art to all of the episodes, and I'm creating a separate playlist for the VG Embassy episodes and the Embassy exclusive episodes. So if you're listening to this and you go check it out, you might see I'm going backwards from the most recent episodes, so you might see most of them done. I'm getting done, like 10 to 20 per day. So hopefully by the time the next Embassy exclusive is out, that'll be completely done. But the episodes are there to listen to, even if they don't have the cover art and the show notes and everything. You can still listen to any of the episodes. The cool thing about it is you can turn on auto-generated captions, and I did experiment with it on a couple episodes, and it does show the text pretty accurately of what we're saying on the podcast. So it was like hypnotizing.
For better or for worse.
Yeah, no, I clicked into an Embassy exclusive episode just to see how it worked, and it was just so kind of like entrancing, like reading the words as we were saying them. Like I've never had that happen to my own voice before, and like I went through like a half an hour of listening to this episode, and I was like, oh my god, I've got editing to do. But it's cool if you're listening at work, you have the volume down, you've got a kid crying in the background, you can kind of keep up with what we're saying without having to like crank up the volume on the show. So it is pretty helpful for that kind of stuff. I'm also looking for new ways to grow the VG Embassy brand with the YouTube channel. I might end up doing maybe some YouTube shorts or some video content to kind of complement all of the videos that are currently there with the podcasts on them. Looking for new ways to improve the Patreon stuff, too. I've experimented with some stuff. I did the VGM Primetime. I was putting out a new episode of VG Embassy related content. I gave it like 3 months. It was a minimum of $1 a month if you wanted to get some extra content, and nobody signed up and nobody interacted with any of the shows that I put up. So it was a little discouraging. Maybe it's not something that you guys want. Maybe there's something else out there that I can do to help get more Patreon subscribers, or to just get you more engaged with the Patreon stuff. Let me know. I've been trying out a bunch of different ideas, but input is always helpful. Podcasts are getting more and more expensive by the day to host and to track. Blueberry, which was the service that I was using to kind of track all the download numbers for my shows, they locked all of their previously free services behind a $10 a month paywall. And I'm like, oh my god, now it's over $100 a month to do what I was getting for free. Not to mention prices for security certificates and web domains are like tripling in price now. So it's imperative that I can at least not operate the VG Embassy on a loss. So it's not like I'm just being greedy and want your money to go buy hookers and blow with. It's just to keep the place alive.
The chips aren't bad, but hookers and blow would be even better.
They're a little distracting from the content, I think.
There's only one way to find out.
I mean, with enough blow, the episode would be 5 hours long.
If you ever have a problem creating enough content. And the hookers would be great for a cover art. So there we go.
Problem
solved.
For morale.
Going with the YouTube algorithm pleasers.
Maybe they got interesting opinions on video games and video game music.
It's true. You never know until you try. Not to dehumanize them. I'm sure that they have their own lives outside of their jobs and sex work. Anyways, on that note, let's get into the meat and potatoes of our show, catching up with all of us, what we've been doing the last month. Joe, you had a pretty cool party a couple weeks ago. Todd and I attended and played some cool games. That was fun.
Yeah, thanks for coming. I learned on, I think it was like Wednesday a couple weeks ago, that my wife and kid were doing an overnight Girl Scout thing, and so like any latchkey kid left to his own devices, I decided to call my buddies and have a party. And I figured I was going to drink beer and eat pizza and play video games, and I figured I could find other people who like that as well. So thank you for coming. It was a good time.
It was fun. Todd and I kind of sequestered ourselves in the basement, as we do. But we played we played through Final Fight 3. And then we played through Turtles in Time.
Yeah, Turtles
on
in
the
Time.
SNES. And then we played Kirby's Dream Course.
Oh, yeah.
Which I introduced you to.
That's right.
And we had a blast doing that.
I feel like there was something else, too. Am I forgetting something?
Did we play something else?
I
know they were playing Smash on the N64 upstairs, and you and I were like, meh. But Kirby's Dream Course was fun.
I had never heard of that either, so I'm going to keep my eyes open for an actual cartridge of that one. I had it on my SNES Classic, but I never actually owned that game, so it's one I'm going to keep my eyes open for now.
Sweet. Yeah, very, very fun. The more people you have playing, the more fun. I think you can only do 2 players at once, but it's way more fun as a 2-player game than it is a single player. You just practice your skills in single player and then use it to trounce your opponent.
That was the sense
multiplayer.
I got. Yeah, it worked out really well. I had a Super Nintendo, I going in one room, an N64 in another room, and we had a Smash Brothers tournament. No one was really into the GameCube. I think people turned it on and gave it a whirl, but I didn't see like a Melee or a Mario Kart tournament happening or anything like that.
There were some guys playing a little bit of Mario Party, but they were just playing the minigame selection screen, not the actual party game.
I think they only did that for like 15 minutes and then they bailed on it.
Oh, that's right. They left that music playing forever and ever.
We were hearing it in the other room going, are they even still doing this?
No, but it was fun having multiple game stations around, kind of centering the whole party around video games. It was a lot of fun. So
it was a good time. I'm glad I did it, and should my wife and kid ever leave again overnight, I'll plan to do it again. I have my beer pong party that I do every summer that, of course, you guys will be invited to. But this was one that in the middle of the winter, I thought, let's just drink and play video games. And
sounds good to me.
There was no shortage of middle-aged dudes who enjoy doing that. Surprise, surprise.
Agreed. So other than that, what have you guys been playing lately?
For now, I'm playing Final Fantasy 16. And as I was telling Todd on the way here, I'm super disappointed by it. There's basically no soundtrack to it. It's all atmospheric, and for a Final Fantasy game, that's just not acceptable.
Yeah.
For an action game, there's approximately 0% chance of losing, I've found. And I have it on like action mode, not game, not like story mode. So it's, I was hoping for something not harder, but something less button mashing. I find that when I get into a boss fight or I'm trying to take on a really hard hunting creature, I don't lose, and I'm not great at it, but like I have my special powers and I press the buttons to get those, as soon as they're charged, and I stagger the enemies as quick as I can, and it's not, I don't know, it's not complex enough for me to hold my attention. The story's fine, which is good, but I'm just not enjoying it the way I would a Final Fantasy game. So I'm going to see it through. I'm about 2/3 of the way through it. I'm guessing, probably another couple of weeks and I'll be done with it, but I don't ever see myself playing it again or, paying extra for DLC or
Makes
anything.
sense. It's one of those things where you're that far and you may as well go through it.
Oh yeah, it's a Final Fantasy game. I finished all the other ones, so I kind of have to see it through.
Right.
But yeah, I'm not excited about it.
That's a bummer. What about you, Todd?
I finally finished Undernauts, which was good. The story was, a little weird, as those games tend to be a lot of the times, but towards the end, it really went off the rails. Which isn't like a bad thing. It just like really kind of went off on a weird angle, and I'm not really sure like where they came up with like what happened in it, but it was as a dungeon crawler, it was a good game. I enjoyed it. That is over with. I am now playing Final Fantasy X because every once in a while I like to play Final Fantasy games. And there was another game that I finished. I'm looking for at my list. I played the original Quake on PS5.
Nice.
And I did finish like the PS5 version, and I think the version of Quake available on various platforms includes the original like 4-chapter story or level set or whatever you want to call it, but also some additional.
Yeah, there's the expansion packs that came
out
on
the
discs alongside
expansion stuff. So I finished the original 4-chapter thing, and I am now like working on the second one.
Cool.
I forget what it's called. And I also played a game called Here Comes Nico on Switch, which is which it touts itself as a casual platformer, and it is exactly that. It's super casual.
Sounds like my kind of game.
And it was fun. Short but fun.
Cool.
And if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, I endorse it.
Good soundtrack?
Yes, I mean not everyone.
That's a no.
Well, not
or unmemorable.
Not everything is brainworm is like a brainworm. Like there are definitely some good jams on it, but it's not like something I'm going to put on my phone and like listen to every day.
Gotcha. Okay,
makes sense.
That's not a make it or break it for a game for me to play anyway. But casual is definitely what I'm all about these days. So
it is very casual.
Cool.
And you, dude, in your non-microphone time, what are you up to?
Like I've had a lot of time to do that. I've been getting through Hot Wheels Unleashed pretty slowly. It's so much like the original game that it's like, I got really obsessed with the first one because I just love fun, arcadey, fast-paced racing games. The second one is just, it's so much like, it could have just been a level pack for the original game. That's how similar it is. So I've been playing through it, but I haven't been like really obsessed with it. I've been playing, the name of the game sucks, but it's called Yet Another Zombie Survivors, which is similar to Vampire Survivors, but it's more of like a tactical kind of, a little bit more realistic kind of graphics. You're dropped in this giant area, hordes of zombies are coming at you, your weapons automatically fire. The same kind of survive 'em up, I used to call them, genre, where each level you get to pick a different perk. But you can get up to 3 characters at once, and your 3 characters kind of move around back to back. So you not only just pick your one character and it has all its abilities and weapons, but you can get hostages along the way, and you can choose which of several different other soldiers you want to join you, and then their abilities and weapons kind of mesh through the whole thing. And then pretty soon you've got this group of 3 soldiers running around the field, each with, one might have a sword, one's got a rifle, one's got a flamethrower, stuff like that.
So almost like tower defense, but you're moving around.
Maybe, kind of, I guess. There's no defending anything. It's just mostly killing as many zombies as you can until either the 20 minutes is up or you die in endless mode. So, very, very much like Vampire Survivors, but a little more weapons-based and a little more based on realism than just cheesy pixel graphics. It's fun. Otherwise, I'm playing Cookie Cutter, which is a Metroidvania-style beat-em-up. With some really good kind of like urban graffiti-based hand-drawn art. You're a robot chick whose creator has been kidnapped, and you basically need to go find her, and you're beating up all these dudes along the way, grabbing upgrades, getting special weapons, but a lot of the fighting stuff is very like Street Fighter style beat-em-up moves. And combos and everything. So that's been actually a lot of fun. It was kind of a sleeper for me. I just really like the art style, and I decided to give it a shot. And I'm only a couple hours into it so far, but I'm really enjoying it. Some really good like hand-drawn animated cutscenes as well. So, I mean, Joe, I know you like Metroidvanias. This might be something for you to look out
I'm
for.
gonna write that one down. That sounds cool.
And really, that's about it. Like I said, there's been a lot of focus on recording and editing for me this past month, so haven't had a ton of time to play a lot of video games. Hopefully that'll start increasing again once all this VGMC and Pixel Tunes radio stuff calms down. But that's about it for now. What do you say we jump into our music?
Let's do it.
All right, Todd, you're up first. What you got?
My track for this month is called Praying Hands. This is from Castlevania 2, Belmont's Revenge on the Game Boy, released in 1991. Composer Hidehiro Funauchi.
I want to know what the captions say when Todd pronounces composer names.
We'll have to experiment with that.
Let's not find out.
That's funny.
Welcome back. That was Praying Hands from Castlevania 2, Belmont's Revenge, released on the Game Boy in 1991, composer Hidehiro Funauchi. And I picked this because after being on VG Embassy episode 99, I am in the mood for Game Boy music.
That put me in the mood for it too, for sure.
So I said, I need to pick a Game Boy track for this month's Embassy exclusive episode, and here we are.
Sweet.
And also, it's a really good song.
Yeah, that was a great episode. I was happy that people were into it. The Dyad in particular was like, because that's his bread and butter. He loves chiptune. So he reached out to me and he's like, would you like to do a Chip Flash Volume 2 at some point with me? And I was like, heck yeah. So that'll be fun to do one with him too. He was after me for that YouTube channel with the streaming chiptune that I was talking about on that episode. So look forward to that in the future. Speaking of looking forward to stuff in the future, also look forward to Praying Hands from Castlevania 2 in the future. Next episode, we'll be visiting that song again, but in a very different way, in a fun way too.
That was not on purpose, by the way. I had no idea. Ed just mentioned that while we were listening to the song, to the track over the break. So this was just one of those little coincidences.
Yeah, it'll be fun. But I'm not going to divulge what it is yet. I
will stay mum. Moving on to my list of completed games for 2023. It's quite long, so buckle up. I started the year out with Evoland on Switch. Final Fantasy IX on PlayStation 1, I played that because it is one of the dwindling number of Final Fantasy numbered games that I had never finished. And I decided it was time. The Order 1886 on PS4, which is kind of like a tech demo for PS4. It was, if it wasn't a launch title, it was close to it. And it was, they worried a lot more, I think, about graphics than gameplay.
Yeah.
It's not a bad game, but it's just
looks pretty in screenshots.
Yeah. Transaruby on Switch, that was the casual Metroidvania that I mentioned to you earlier this year. That was a very good game.
Mm-hmm.
Crypt of the Serpent King, which is a terrible dungeon crawler on Switch. Monorail Stories on PC. Webbed on Switch, which is a fun little indie platformer.
Kind of like miniature folks running around a backyard. Is that?
No, it's you play a jumping spider.
Oh, yes.
You run around and cast webs on stuff.
Yep.
It's fun. I endorse it. Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster on Switch. Lake on PS5, which is a fun little indie, I guess, visual novel type game. Well, yeah. I mean, there's interaction. It's not a straight visual novel.
It's a life experience game, I guess.
Right, something like that.
It's a slice of life game.
It's fun if you need something super chill.
Yeah.
Ratchet & Clank Into the Nexus on PS3. I very much enjoy the Ratchet & Clank games. Neo on PS5. The Spirit and the Mouse on Switch. Puzzle Agent on PC. We Are OFK on Switch. Final Fantasy 16 PS5. Joe has already talked about that at some length. Spider-Man Miles Morales on PS5. The Gardens Between on PS5. Which is a fun little puzzle game. I think I talked about it on here. It's a fun little puzzle game, which is reminiscent of Braid. When you move in one direction, time advances, and when you move in the other, time reverses.
Right, yeah, that sounds cool.
The puzzle aspect of it is figuring out how to manipulate the world within those boundaries. Star Trek Voyager Elite Force on PC, Islets on Switch, Creeks on Switch, Sea of Stars on PS5, and finally, Horizon Forbidden West on PS5. My top 3... Horizon, Neo, and Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster.
That sounds like a you top 3.
That is a me top 3 for sure. You might notice I did not mention Final Fantasy 16. I did enjoy it. Perhaps more than it sounds like Joe is enjoying it, but I cannot argue with anything that he said about it.
Yeah, it's a shame. I mean, it's gotten good reviews. I was actually looking at some top soundtracks of 2023 posts, and somebody actually mentioned Final Fantasy 16, and I think that's from what you've said about it, it almost feels like, well, it's Final Fantasy, it's got to have a good soundtrack, so I'm going to put it up here just for clicks, because it was one of those IGN kind of lists where people are just expecting a Final Fantasy game to be on there.
I think it's a really good game for a different audience than me. I play Final Fantasy games hoping to relive that magic from the first time I played Final Fantasy VI. And that's never going to happen. But still, somewhere in the back of my head, I'm hoping to feel that way again. Which is why one of my favorite games of the year is also Final Fantasy Pixel Remasters, because for the exact same reasons. But yeah, 16 is, I don't think I'm the intended audience for it. I think it's designed for a new generation of gamers.
The older we get, the more that's going to happen.
Get off my lawn, and so on.
Get off my digital lawn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were there any game soundtracks that you were really into this year?
We Are OFK is a game about a group of people that are making an EP. And while the actual music isn't necessarily my style, I really appreciated how the game approached the end result of the EP that the group makes in the game is an actual EP released by the musicians. So it's kind of like two worlds kind of crossing into each other.
That's cool.
And I really appreciated the way that they approached how that worked. And so it kind of sticks out in my mind because of it. It's not really my style of music, but I do appreciate how it was put together, if that makes sense. Sea of Stars has a good soundtrack, and the game was good for the first maybe 10 hours and less good for the next 40.
Yeah, that's where I'm at on that one.
And it
too.
seems I don't think I'm alone on that. I read a lot of similar feelings online, but I also read of a lot of people that really love it and don't seem to be getting bored of it. So maybe it's just me. I don't know.
Maybe it's the people that haven't played the RPGs that are similar to it, like Chrono Trigger and all that.
Yeah,
The novelty remains novel.
almost the same thing with me there too, in that like I expected a certain feeling while I was playing it, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah.
And so I think I was left disappointed. It's hard to put into words. I guess I was hoping to feel the way I felt when I first played Chrono Trigger or something like that, or even some of the excitement from when I played The Messenger, but I didn't. I just didn't feel that way about Sea of Stars. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't what I was hoping.
Yeah, I agree with that. And of course, obligatory mention of the soundtrack from Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster. Square absolutely killed it on the kind of remastering or the reorchestration of the soundtracks for all 6 of the Pixel Remaster games.
Yeah, I think we've played a couple of tracks
yes.
from there.
Yeah, we have.
On this exclusive.
That has been my go-to in the car for the last 6 months.
Very nice, very cool. All right, we did have some write-ins from folks. I reached out on Discord to ask how everybody's year in gaming for 2023 went. Standout games, standout soundtracks, anything that they wanted to share. A few folks wrote back in. So the last Rican says, so my year in gaming wasn't bad, nor was it spectacular. I would say the highlights were getting my first ever Platinum Trophy in Spider-Man 2, which, if you're a fan of Venom, is an incredible game. Enjoying the fact that Street Fighter 6 feels like an actual Street Fighter game, screw you, Street Fighter 5, and finally getting a chance to play the Final Fantasy 6 Pixel Remaster. He's still in the beginning of that game.
Yes.
And while I do think the soundtrack for Street Fighter 6 is dope, it doesn't really hit me as soundtrack of the year. And while I do have Tears of the Kingdom, I did not play it to its completion. I got one dungeon to go and fell off because of work and life. Maybe I'll add it to my 4 for February. Regardless, Happy New Year's. Happy New Year's to you too, Daryl. Yeah, I've heard some of the Street Fighter 6 soundtrack, and it does sound pretty good. I kind of fell off of Street Fighter with Street Fighter 4.
It's been ages since I've played one.
Yeah, I don't play with other people. I don't like playing online, and the single-player content in those games kind of went downhill. So there just hasn't been much motivation for me to play those games. They're built for person-to-person competition now, and I just grew up with Street Fighter playing like single-player arcade mode, and that was my bread and butter. Or playing with my brother, which was neither here nor there, him being younger than me. It was just kind of like, how many times can I beat you in one evening without you getting mad at me? I do more prefer the one-on-one fighting games that have some meaty single-player stories like Mortal Kombat, etc.
The next time I have an old man party, I'll have to have a Street Fighter 2 tournament.
That would be fun. Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter 3.
Or Mortal Kombat 2 or 3. Or
Soul Calibur, all those old games were great. Tekken. Oh, I forgot to mention, I just started playing Tekken 8 this morning, and it's awesome so far. Great story mode. Cool. Fantastic graphics and really kind of seamless integration between the full motion video cutscenes and the in-game gameplay story. So I'm looking forward to playing through that and finishing that up. That not only has a full, Mortal Kombat style story mode, but then it's also got individual story modes for each playable character, where there's 5 battles that kind of take you through an individual story for each character. So a lot of single player content in that game, which makes me quite happy, because I won't be doing any online with that, unless I feel really confident that I could maybe beat even the 3-year-old noobs that are out there. Anyways, let's move on to... Excuse me, sorry. Let's move on to Joe. What you got?
My track is Boss Battle Critical Clash 2 from Octopath Traveler 2, composed by Yasunori Nishiki, released last year in 2023 for the for computer, PC, PlayStation, and Nintendo Switch.
Sweet.
And we're back. That was Boss Battle Critical Clash 2 from Octopath Traveler 2, composed by Yasunori Nishiki, released in 2023 for the PC, PlayStation, and Nintendo Switch. That was a cool boss theme.
Yeah,
I could have had we done that episode last year, I could have put that in for the with the RPG Battle Themes episode, but after the fact, I still think it was pretty good, and this was a game I really enjoyed. This was my favorite soundtrack from 2023, was Octopath 2. Highly recommend it if you are into, well, if you liked the first game, if you like RPG soundtracks that are well done and more than just atmospheric, this is what you want. This is solid. It makes you feel just the kind of things you want to feel for the exciting themes, the like quiet ones, the sad ones, the happy ones. It's got it all. It's a great soundtrack. Highly recommend it.
Cool.
My game list this year is not quite as extensive as you guys, but of course I think I played a different style of game this year. I played River City Girls 2, Mario 3D Land and Bowser's Fury, Carry On, and Tears of the Kingdom were the games I finished. Tears of the Kingdom, I'd say I was probably on for like, at least 3 months. Carry On was a smaller game. River City Girls 2 were smaller games, but Mario 3D Land and Bowser's Fury were, I'll say, medium-length games that were well worth the time. I also beat Mario Wonder, which I will get into in a minute when I talk about my topic. The other games I played but didn't finish for various reasons, whether I got bored of them or just didn't didn't see it through or just moved on because I was more excited about something else were Brotato. I decided to give another Survivor 'em Up a try. Sea of Stars for the aforementioned reason. I started playing Castlevania Aria of Sorrow, the classic, and I just got distracted because what is it that came out? Oh, I think that's when Tears of the Kingdom came out, and I moved on to it instead.
Gotcha.
Monster Train, which is a deck-building game, very similar to Slay the Spire. If you dig that, you would like this one as well. It got a little repetitive for me, and a little too random. I felt I didn't have enough... there wasn't enough strategy, and it was a little too much like hoping I got the right card at the right time.
Gotcha.
Fey Tactics, I got for Steam, which was one I'd wanted to play for a long time and really enjoyed it. Flint Hook is a roguelike action platformer, which was a lot of fun for about 10 hours, and then it got repetitive, and I wasn't good enough to beat it before I got bored with it. If I was better, maybe it would have held my interest for longer, but it gets hard, but it was fun. Little Inferno, on your recommendation, Ed, I enjoyed for a few hours, and then it just kind of felt repetitive to me. Sorry, I know you're disappointed, but
it's more of a story-based game than it seems at the beginning. So, yeah, what seems like you're just burning random things in a fireplace eventually turns into something more. But it's fine.
I didn't get far enough to get to that, but it's fine. It wasn't bad. I liked what they were doing with it, and it had some entertainment value, but I didn't see that one through. Mario Kart 8. I don't know if you can beat Mario Kart. I mean, I guess you
could gold trophy all the cups. Basically,
I definitely haven't done that. But I have all the DLC and all the new stages and whatnot. And me and my kid play that all the time, even still now. So that's one that I go to all the time. The aforementioned Octopath 2, and a random game that I played earlier at the beginning of the year, Dwarf Romantic. If you've ever heard of it.
Never heard of it.
It's a. Do you know the board game Carcassonne?
Oh, yeah.
It's an electronic version of Carcassonne, basically, where you get tiles and you have to lay them down in such a way so that you're building either rivers or towns or farms or things like that.
Which is weird because there's a digital version of Carcassonne, too. So
Dwarf Romantic is basically...
like an alternate version of it.
Of Carcassonne.
Chinese knockoff.
Yeah, kind of. It was fun for a couple of hours, and then I was just like, well... I would almost rather play this as a board game with friends than randomly, like, online.
Carcassonne was one of the first Xbox Live games on the Xbox 360, which is how I got interested in it. I've been playing that for years.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even realize it was available. Well, I'm not surprised that, there's an app for it or a game for it, but I'm also big into board games, so I've had the board game for many years.
Yeah.
As well as a ton of expansions for it. So I dig that kind of thing, but I didn't enjoy Dwarf Romantic for more than a few hours, and then I just kind of got...
I'll check it out now that I know about it. It seems interesting.
My topic, to stay mostly on theme here, is your biggest surprise in gaming this year. Did you love or hate something unexpectedly? Did a tune get stuck in your head that's not your usual jam? Did someone give you a gift gaming-wise that you were not expecting? My biggest surprise this year was Mario games. I played Bowser's Fury, and I loved it. I was not expecting to. It's basically a Mario Odyssey add-on almost. You get a big open world, and you just need to go from island to island, basically as you feel you want to, looking for stars. They call them cat shines. They went a little overboard with the cat references in Super Mario 3D Land. But anyways, you collect cat shines. But I really liked the way that this was set up. I especially liked it. I hope they bring this back in other Mario games, the inventory system. You get a little stash where you can hold up to 5 of each of the different power-ups that you could use at any time. So while you're wandering the world, if you suddenly are at a point now where you need to like fly or dig or like throw fireballs, you have that fire flower in reserve, and you can activate it at any time. And I thought that was really cool. You don't have to, hope you bring one into a level. You have it ready, which is cool. I hope they use that more in other Mario games. And the other game that I played that I was especially surprised by, I really thought Nintendo was going to mail it in when I first heard about Mario Wonder coming out, but it's phenomenal. It's so bright and colorful, and varied and challenging, and it's just a great Mario game.
Cool.
I have to recommend it to anyone who likes Mario stuff. Like I said, I really thought Nintendo was gonna mail it in, and it was just gonna be a Mario game with, like some new levels. It's completely different. Every level has its own like theme or idea, or a completely different mechanic that makes you have to rethink how you play. Like one has a, like in one there's a super strong wind, so everything you do has to be done with like wind being in mind. And then in another there's like the ground is bouncy, so you get to bounce super high, and you have to, and the level's designed with that mechanic in mind. And every single level has its own unusual, different, unique mechanic, which I just thought was so much fun. And it was just the right difficulty level too. Some of the harder levels got really hard, but you don't have to play every single level. You can, skip some if you don't want to play them, and they tell you ahead of time which ones are the really hard ones. So highly recommended if you guys haven't spent time on Mario Wonder. It is well worth it, and one of the few games that I'll say saw to completion in 2023.
Cool. Yeah, it's one of those games that, again, like I think we talked about it a couple episodes ago, I played the first couple levels and was like, yeah, cool, Mario game, and just kind of had a good time, but then put it down and like just never had the motivation to go back to it again. So,
and that's fair enough.
Yeah,
I do that a lot too. But also with a Mario game, you can get back into it just as easy. You don't need to like relive the story or anything like that. And if you just need,
don't need to relearn a lot of the skills.
Yeah, it's well worth it. I highly recommend Mario Wonder or. Just behind that, Bowser's Fury to people. And I'm not usually as excited about Mario games, but these ones were both great. I wish Bowser's Fury was a full game and not a half game.
Yeah.
It only took, I'll say, like 15 hours or so to collect, almost everything. I would have loved to have played a full, like 40, 50 hour Mario game that was, Bowser's Fury, because it was great.
Yeah, I heard good things about that one. I probably could have put Mario Kart 8 on my list. I mean, I know we haven't gotten to it, but it's not on my list because I did play all of the extra content that came out this year. There's a ton of tracks in Mario Kart 8 now. It is like totally worth the purchase price. And I did gold trophy at the, I think it's 100 or 150cc, one of the two. I did gold trophy all of the new content that came out, plus having gold trophy all of the original ones that had come out when it was on the Wii U. I could consider 100%ing that game, basically.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, no, I'm not. I play it with my kid. Like we don't play it, hyper competitively, and I don't think I've ever played it for more than like 5 or 10 minutes at a time. So I've never really, I'll say, done a whole lot of the cups to earn the gold trophies. But I'm just having fun playing the game with my kid.
Cool.
And we really like it. Oh, and the only other game that I played to follow up from my discussions the last couple of months, I finally finished Marvel Snap. I got to level 100 in December, was very quickly outclassed by the other people who... So it matches you up against people of a similar level, and there are people that... The difficulty level of your competition grows exponentially when you reach level 100. So that got to the point where it made it unwinnable or unable for me to really proceed further unless I was going to play for hundreds and hundreds of more hours. But once I got to level 100, I still have it on my phone. I still play with it, but not obsessively. I don't feel like it's taking away from my life the way it was a couple of months ago, where I was like, yeah, okay, I'm just going to play one more time. Or I'm just going to see this one through.
Yeah.
That part is gone. Now it's just kind of a fun, casual thing.
It's a good way to beat the addiction. Just take the fun out of it.
Well, it's not that it's not fun anymore. It's that I accomplished what I set out to do.
Yeah.
It's still the same game, and I still have fun playing it, and there's still the strategy to it, but I don't feel the pressure to, like, get to that plateau.
Gotcha. Nothing left to accomplish in
Especially
that
because once I got to that plateau, I got my ass handed to me by everyone else up there.
Yeah.
So
that's funny.
So it's not that it wasn't fun anymore. It was that I was outclassed, and I didn't feel the need to compete at that level.
Gotcha.
I did what I accomplished what I set out to do.
Very cool. Good. Yeah, so it sounds like you had some fun this year, for sure.
For sure.
We've got some right in. So you had... All right, so I guess we could talk about our biggest surprises, because that was basically your topic for this. I I don't know, Todd, anything that stands out to you in that regard?
I didn't expect Baldur's Gate 3 to be as popular as it has turned out to be. Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 exist, and I think that they're popular games, but nothing like what 3 has turned out to be. I think a lot of people who never played the first 2 games are playing or have played 3, and for some reason it has just turned into this huge thing, and I didn't really expect... I haven't played it yet, and I would like to, but I did not expect its popularity to be what it has turned out to be.
Yeah, I think they just made it much more accessible this time around.
Maybe that's what it is, yeah. Like I said, I haven't played it, so I don't know.
Kind of being based on Dungeons & Dragons rules, and there have been so many more, like... D&D is becoming kind of cool and mainstream now with all these web series like, Critical Role and Dimension 20 and all these kind of shows that are doing Dungeons & Dragons. I think people are getting more into it at a kind of like a very casual level, and that's kind of like where Baldur's Gate 3 starts and lets you kind of get more into it if you want to build your character in a certain way. So I think it's becoming less... kind of quote-unquote nerdy to play that kind of a game, which is why it's getting more mainstream appeal now.
It seems like Dungeons & Dragons as a concept is kind of shrugging off its perceived nerdiness and is becoming...
It's no more like basement-dwelling nerds.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of like... And they're getting like cool comedy people and video game voice actors and anime voice actors to play it on YouTube, so it's kind of lending a little bit more of a quote-unquote cool factor to the... at least cool within the nerd community to play it. So the nerds that wouldn't normally play Dungeons and Dragons are now kind of getting into it more. Plus, it's becoming more accessible for people. You can play on Discord. There's bots that are set up very easily to let you start and play games, and so you don't necessarily have to have 4 people in your neighborhood that you can go and go raiding with or whatever. You can just pop online and find a community very easily.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's what it is.
Yeah. So it's kind of a perfect storm for a game like Baldur's Gate to succeed. And then people that are just into video game RPGs might play Baldur's Gate and be like, oh, this is all based on D&D. This is kind of cool. And then they can go play the tabletop game and already have a little bit of a working knowledge of how the systems work. So that's pretty cool. For me, I mean, I don't know. I haven't had too many surprises. I'm kind of looking through the games that I beat this year, and I can't really think of anything. Soundtracks were hard because aside from the one that I'm going to be playing in my segment that I don't want to spoil just yet, there haven't really been any soundtracks this year that I've been like, yeah, man, that rules. Like, I need to share this with everybody. I've been listening to a lot more classic stuff. I was even kind of looking through the VG Embassy episodes, and there are a bunch of older soundtracks that I've discovered through blind listens and VG ambassadors coming on the show and stuff, but nothing that was really released in 2023 that really grabbed my attention that much. So, I don't know, weird year in gaming for me. Most of the stuff that I played was either from previous years or whatnot, but... So, sorry, I didn't really have a great answer for your question, Trevor.
That's okay. I was just trying to stay roughly on point, and I figured maybe we'd get a couple of decent listener responses.
Yeah, so Utopia Nemo wrote in, and he says,
biggest surprise for me this year would probably be God of War. One, I was underwhelmed by the gameplay itself. It's the first polygonal game I've played since I got back into gaming, where you were mostly confined to walking along a narrow, mostly linear path. Where your character was a god who could literally kill other gods, who could lift massive stone columns, but was unable to walk through some shrubs because the game devs didn't want you to. I like that.
Kind of a hot take.
In spite of those types of immersion-breaking idiocies, the story and dialogue and voice acting were phenomenal. Maybe the best I've experienced. I cared about all the characters. The opening scene was powerful and gut-wrenching, and despite the game coming out about 4 years ago, there was a major surprise in the game that somehow I hadn't heard talked about anywhere, which totally blew me away. That's actually something, that same criticism is something that's bothering me about Final Fantasy 16 as well. That everything seems to be super linear, and while you can warp back and forth to different places, you can't go off the path enough, and that kind of bothers me.
And there's not really a huge reason to.
You're kind of proving what I was going to say, but you can continue.
I was just going to say that once you finish in an area or go through the storyline aspect in an area in Final Fantasy 16, unless it happens to have like some collectible or something that you want to get a trophy for or something, there's generally not much reason to go back.
Yeah. My what I was going to say was, in terms of God of War, Kratos is so singularly minded and kind of tunnel visioned for his objectives in each of his games. Like, the fact that he doesn't want to go over these shrubs to go enter this kind of weird part of the forest that doesn't seem like, because it doesn't have anything in it. Kratos knows better than the player. He's going to say, this is the way to where I need to beat the next god. I'm not going to spend 4 hours, looking for a mushroom underneath every single tree like Link does when the princess is probably going to be dead in 20 minutes. So I think it feels more realistic that a person like Kratos would follow that linear path and know exactly where to go, because he does have these godlike powers, where Link is your everyday kind of guy that happens to be quote-unquote the chosen, but doesn't really have any godly knowledge and might want to spend a lot of time exploring everything to try to make himself powerful enough. Where Kratos already has that power. He's just going to go and do it,
Just got to find that one more fish at exactly midnight in that one pond in the super far corner of the map. But if I get 20 of them, I'll be able to upgrade my weapon.
Yeah, and you can't make every area of the game insurmountable. Otherwise, Kratos' entire path would just be like rock faces on either side. Like, you got to make it look pretty. So I don't know. It's a matter of willful suspension of disbelief in those kind of situations, or just justifying it in your head like I do. That, Kratos just isn't going to let himself deviate from the path, and he's damned if the player's going to let him do it either. So we did have another response to our general kind of overarching theme, which was just your year in review. Red Hua sent us an audio file, so let's check that one out.
Hello everyone from VG Embassy and everyone listening in. This is Red Hua from the server. With regards to the episode's topic, I haven't been doing much gaming the past year due to being busy with life and getting stuff sorted, and as far as 2023 video game releases go, I didn't hear anything that particularly stood out, but I did come across some older games in 2023 that either had good soundtracks or impressed me one way or the other. First is Linkle Liver Story, which never released outside of Japan, which was published for the Sega Saturn. It's basically Terranigma with furries, and without the deep, serious story that Terranigma has. The soundtrack is quite impressive, and the composers aren't well-known names or particularly prolific to my knowledge, so definitely well worth checking out. And second is Jack Orlando. After the episode about non-VGM composers who would make good VGM, I brought up Herbie Hancock in the server, and then the conversation segued to Harold Faltermeyer of Beverly Hills Cop fame, I think Top Gun, and also The Running Man. He composed the music for Jack Orlando, and is probably the best thing about the game, which otherwise, while ambitious, is meh. And I would say it's a testament to the fact that non-VGM composers can in fact transition very well into video game composition. Third is Nosferatu for the Super Nintendo. Now, while I heard the name of the game before, I never really looked into it. It's basically Prince of Persia with Dracula-esque monsters and good production values. Like, really mighty impressive game, I would say. And the soundtrack is solid, and it's very, very challenging too. And it even had, regarding the soundtrack, like I said, it's impressive, and it even has some arguably clanky industrial tracks, even though Ed would disagree on what industrial is. Sorry, Ed. Anyway, fourth is Hotel Dusk Room 215. I'm not the biggest visual novel fan, which is weird because I love Snatcher and Police Knots, and maybe that's the Kojima bias in me, but anyway, this game has a very interesting premise that kept me hooked, throughout, and the soundtrack is really funky and really well worth checking out as well. And then lastly is Lost Eden. Now, it's made by the guys who made the first Dune game and also KGB, and this game was composed by Stefan Peak. I think that's how you pronounce his name. And as with those two games that I mentioned, Lost Eden has a stellar soundtrack that's mostly new age in style, and it's reminiscent of the French band Deep Forest. Also well worth checking out. And I know we said 5 games, but I just want to give an honorable mention to The Bouncer, which is basically a beat-em-up game with the Final Fantasy art style, and that game also has a surprisingly nice soundtrack, even if the game itself leaves much to be desired. And yeah, that would be my picks for 2023.
Awesome. Thank you, Red Hua. I've actually played, I think, almost all of those games. Linkle Liver Story is a... just got an English translation released for it. Previously, it was only available in Japanese. So that's another kind of like it's kind of similar to Terra Enigma. It's kind of a casual adventure / RPG-ish kind of a game. I'd been going through a lot of older Pixel Tunes radio shows, obviously in preparation for the 10th anniversary reunion, and I listened to the first Spooky Tunes episode that we did. And I played a selection of tunes from Nosferatu on there, and was kind of remembering how good the music was. It's very kind of like John Carpenter-esque, like people breathing and like weird dissonant tones in the background. Really kind of unique for a Super Nintendo soundtrack. So I remember that fairly well. I remember trying to convince Mike to buy the cart, which was very expensive, so that he could do a YouTube video review on it. I don't know if he ever ended up doing that. No, because I told him I needed to be in it if he did, so I don't think he ever did. Anyways, just fun memories of Nosferatu. That was cool. Thank you, Red Hua, for chiming in. That was cool. And Lost Eden, I think we played a track from. The Dyad and I played a track from Lost Eden on the Masters of VGM 2 episode. So lots of tie-ins to current stuff that we're doing on VG Embassy. All right, ready to move on?
Let's do it.
All right, so my segment is going to start with my soundtrack of the year. This is a track called Don't Preheat Your Oven, because if you do, the song won't play, from Pizza Tower, released on the PC in 2023, composed by ClascyJitto. This particular song was composed by them. Also, Mr. Sauceman and Post ELVIS wrote music for this game. Huge soundtrack. Be right back. All right, we're back. That was Don't Preheat Your Oven, because if you do, the song won't play, from Pizza Tower. Came out on PC in 2023, composed by ClascyJitto, Mr. Sauceman, and Post ELVIS. Huge, very eclectic soundtrack, 3.5 hours long. There's like 30-something tracks in it. This is just one of my favorites from it. Have only played a little bit of this game. It's been recommended to me by a couple of people, and it's kind of a like an indie darling, I guess. People are doing a lot of fan art for it. People are creating a lot of remixes of the soundtrack, kind of similar to like Undertale. It's got that kind of a vibe going forward as far as the community around it. But it's fun. It's a side-scrolling action game. It borrows a lot from Wario Land 4, where you're kind of like shoulder-checking your way through people, and there's a lot of like a Sonic the Hedgehog speed going on for it too. It's a good combination of a bunch of different classic side-scrolling games. So I'm going to play more of it. It's not on my list because I didn't start playing it in 2023, but the soundtrack came out in 2023, so that's why it's my soundtrack of the year. As far as games that I have finished this year, I started off with Trubberbrook, which I played a track from on the that crossover I did with Arcane Machine. Crowns and Pawns, Kingdom of Deceit, which was a fun kind of point-and-click adventure game. Golf Club Wasteland, Anemoiopolis, The Complex Found Footage, and The Complex Expedition, which are all Backrooms liminal space games. The Christmas DLC for Little Inferno, which was like a little sub-game in and of itself that came out like years after the original game did. All the Vampire Survivors DLCs that came out. All of the SnowRunner DLCs that came out except for the most current one, which I'm still working on. Arcade Paradise, which I think I talked about before. You build your own arcade in a laundromat with a bunch of very unique playable arcade games that you can play and get achievements for and stuff. And eventually, like, remove all the laundry portions of your building and make it into a full arcade. The Bookwalker, which I talked about, I did end up beating that. That was a great game. The We Love Katamari remake, plus Royal Reverie, which was a remake of the second Katamari game. Infra Underground. You all know my love for the game Infra. Underground is a fan-made add-on DLC. Not DLC because it's not paid, but it's more like a mod, I guess. But it's a full self-contained story for the Infra game engine. Speaking of which, I've really gotten into this YouTuber called The Librarian. I don't know if you guys have heard of him. But he's really into, he calls it creepy and comfy content, which is slower paced games that are also kind of scary. And like independent horror games, like the PS1 horror games and stuff, but he's not a speedrunner. He takes a lot of time. He explores all the environments, kind of like enjoys how all the levels are built and the atmosphere. And he's a really cool, kind of laid back YouTuber to watch. And recently he started going through Infra, which is great because I've been reliving the game like through him. And he's not like, if somebody like, Markiplier or Jacksepticeye played through Infra, they'd be like, just rushing through and trying to get everything done. But this guy's really slowing down and looking at all the environments, really appreciating all of the work that goes into it, which is the way I play my games. So if you like that kind of a thing, check out The Librarian. Infra Underground. Bramble, which was a third-person game based on Nordic mythology, kind of like... what's that game where you're the little kids with the monsters chasing you around? Little Nightmares? Yeah, that's what it was called. Shovel Knight Dig, which was a lot of fun. That was a mobile game. Haunted Mansion 2, light gun-based arcade shooter. Escape from Mistwood Manor, which was a kind of like The Room-style puzzle box game where you end up in this mansion and you have to solve a bunch of puzzles in order to either get out or become the next puzzle master of the mansion, depending on which ending you get. American Arcadia, The Invincible, and Railbreak. American Arcadia is probably my game of the year, followed closely by Invincible. I spoke about American Arcadia before, where it's a combination of first-person and side-scrolling, and it's kind of like the Truman Show, but everybody in this dome is kind of like all watched by individual people, and they all have their own like social media metrics, and they kind of eliminate people that have the least amount of followers, and you end up being one of those people and have to escape from this area with the help of this person that's working for the company that's kind of filming all the people that's in the dome. Great voice acting, great storyline, absolutely loved it. The Invincible is based on a novel, and it's another kind of walking simulator, but there's a lot of like vehicle driving and puzzle solving as well. Very, very hard sci-fi. Just a fantastic story of trudging through Mars on this desolate environment, kind of going from base to base, trying to piece together what happened, communicating with your captain who's in a spaceship up above, and kind of meeting some survivors from a rival faction. And there's this kind of organic metallic life form that's kind of taking over the planet, and you got to figure out what's going on together. Invincible felt more like watching a movie or reading a book than it did actually playing a video game, just based on how heavy the narrative was, but it was so well put together. The graphics were fantastic, the voice acting and the writing was phenomenal. Definitely one of my games of the year. So American Arcadia for gameplay, and I guess Invincible for story and just sheer depth of the content were my two favorite games. Railbreak is kind of like a cheesy knockoff of like House of the Dead, where you're just going through these areas and shooting down zombies. Kind of like an Unreal 5 independent release. It wasn't that great. Don't really recommend it.
I assumed it was a train simulator or something.
Well, because yeah, that's true. Well, it's like an on-rail shooter. I don't know why they call it rail break, because you never break off the rails. You're on rails for the entire game. So, anyways, yeah, it was a pretty good 2023 as far as games go. Got really into like the liminal space backrooms stuff. I wish there was more. There are some great single-player exploration, kind of like slower style liminal space games out there, and I mentioned those three, Anemoiopolis, and the two complex games. There are a couple other ones that are like fast-paced online, like Escape from the Monster kind of a games, which I enjoy like watching YouTubers play them, but I haven't really been into like playing myself. That's about it. I'm looking forward to continuing, obviously, with SnowRunner and Vampire Survivors this year. Playing Tekken 8, which will probably, I'll play that all the way through, so that'll be on my next year's list, probably up near the top. And Trooper Book, I had a great time with. I think I played that over the course of 2022 into 2023. Also a great point-and-click adventure, very much in the style of like the LucasArts and old Sierra games. So yeah, that was my 2023. Some good stuff there, but it wasn't like nothing really stood out as much as like when Breath of the Wild or anything came out. Nothing of that caliber as far as the games that I've played so far.
I don't know where you dig this stuff up. I've only heard of maybe 20% of these games.
A lot of them I've seen like YouTubers playing. A lot of them have just kind of shown up on my recommendations on Steam, and I'll just put it on my wish list and wait for it to go on sale and pick it up. Like, I've got so many games in Steam. I've got probably 1,100 to 1,200 games on Steam right now, and just based on what I've been playing, like, it knows my tastes pretty well. And just through being really into backroom stuff and watching all the Kane Pixels content, like, a lot of the Backrooms games have been showing up in my feed too, and watching people play those, so I've just been grabbing them and playing them too.
I haven't played any of the games, but I've been getting into the videos and the mythos behind it also. I'll have to move to games next.
Yeah, I think you'll enjoy the Complex, because those are really kind of based on the Kane Pixel stuff. It really feels like you're like inside those universes. It's really cool. We've got one write-in from Ryan Steele and Utopian Nemo. Todd, you haven't read yet, so why don't you see what Ryan has to say?
Farmer Steel says his top 5 games of 2023 are Sekiro, gross, Wulong, Baldur's Gate 3, Fire Emblem Engage, and Armored Core 5 from Software,
which appeal.
A game series I have not played any of and don't really have a lot of interest in, even though they're From Software games.
Yeah.
They have to appeal to somebody, I guess.
Right.
He says, he continues, Sekiro was a wonderful but difficult game I completed at the start of the year. The rest are games that I played this year that also happened to come out this year also. Wulong is a wonderful Soulsborne/Ninja Gaiden hybrid set in the Three Kingdoms era. Had a lot of playing, beating it, and playing co-op with Dan this year. I think fun playing it,
probably fun.
Beating it, and playing with Dan this year. Baldur's Gate 3, the game of the year, lives up to its expectations I had when I bought it in early access years ago. Still need to beat it as other games take priority due to life. Yeah. I hear that. Fire Emblem Engage was a fun, more tactical, streamlined version of previous games. I enjoyed my time, but felt done when I rolled the credits. Well, that's good. At least it lasted that long.
Yeah.
Having never played an Armored Core before, except sitting at a friend's house for 8 hours watching him play and not asking me if I wanted to.
Oh, it's like having a big brother.
It was a delightful playthrough, very tough but rewarding, although New Game Plus is very easy as it doesn't scale with difficulty, but makes getting all 3 endings much easier.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I like when New Game Plus lets you keep all your stuff. But usually there's some more challenging stuff.
Yeah, usually it scales up.
Like Inscription. Oh, did I not put Inscription on my list?
Oh, I didn't add that either, because I played that last
Jesus, that was definitely one of my games of the year. I don't know why I forgot to put that on the list. Oh, I know, because I was going to put it on the list after I beat the Casey's Mod stuff that comes after you actually beat the full game. But I'm really struggling to get through that part. So I will add Inscription's main single player mode to my list, and that is definitely one of my games of the year.
I'll add that to my list for this year because I do plan to get back to it and give it another try.
Yeah, and like I said, like if you want to hang out some night and just play it together, and I can kind of show you some techniques that I've learned along the way.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Fun. Yeah,
I want to see all the stuff I didn't make it to in that game.
Yeah. It's got a really cool ending. I don't know if we'd be able to beat it in one night, but we'd have some fun getting through it for sure. We should plan that. Utopian Nemo says, I played through God of War, Stray, Shredder's Revenge, Control, and The Messenger. I'm also in some stage of completion on Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Alan Wake, and Eastward.
Stray was so good.
I wanted to like Eastward so much. I gave that one a try. That was that last year or 2022 that came out?
I think that was 2022.
Okay, I was going to say, I forgot to add that to my list, but
it's been kind of a slow burn in terms of popularity, though.
Yeah, I really wanted to like that game, but I couldn't get into it.
Of those, probably the biggest surprise was Control. Long story short, it's an excellent game with first-rate mood, graphics, and storytelling. It was so good that I decided to pick up Alan Wake 1 and 2, games which are not normally my cup of tea. They share a universe with Control, so I'm just thrilled to be able to continue in that world, even if it scares the pants off of me. Pants are overrated anyway.
That game came highly recommended to me by a friend of mine.
I
kind of bounced off of it.
I think it was free for a week on the Epic Game Store, so I do have it, and I can play it whenever I want. I just haven't gotten to it yet. All the Remedy games look so freaking cool. I don't know why I haven't played them. I think because they just seem so dense that it's difficult for me to want to start or know where to start. I want to play Alan Wake 2, but I didn't play Alan Wake 1, and I want to play Control, but I don't know how it fits into Alan Wake and whether I should play that before or afterwards. I think I need a YouTube video just to tell me what I can and can't play in the Remedy series before I start getting into it.
Well, from what Nemo is saying here, it's looking like you can play Control without having played Alan Wake.
Yeah, I think so. And I know a little bit about Alan Wake 2 because I've kind of watched a lot of videos about it, so maybe I'll try Control first and then get into Alan Wake. Because nobody needs pants. He says, as far as music goes, the Eastward soundtrack is phenomenal. It's been in the house since my daughter played through it the year before and bought the OST, but it wasn't until I started playing it in November that its tracks really started to worm their way into my psyche. Also excellent, wonderful, fantastic game. So it sounds like Nemo's found something in Eastward that you didn't.
I do have it, but I haven't played it yet. Maybe I should.
It was a little too linear for my tastes. I think when I saw the previews for it and started playing it, I thought it was going to be a little more, not open world. I knew it wasn't that, but a little more open. And I think I was just disappointed when it didn't go that way.
Gotcha. Is that kind of similar to Earthbound? Am I thinking of the right game? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
The art style is very similar.
Okay.
The story is completely unique and different and whatnot. But
gotcha.
The graphics and the pixel art is very similar to.
Earthbound and Mother 3, neither one of those are very open world at all. They're very linear RPGs, so maybe that's where they're taking their inspiration from there. And me being a fan of those, maybe I'll enjoy that.
He's right. The music is phenomenal in it, though.
Actually, it's probably something I should tell Logan about, since he's so obsessed with Undertale at this point. They seem to share the same kind of vibe and gameplay. Hold on. Wait a second. I'm just realizing now that we had somebody write in that I did not.
Ooh, bonus content.
Oh no. I could have sworn that I copied his stuff into the document, but I'm being a jerk now. All right. So, we also have Chris Murray. Chris Murray also talking about Baldur's Gate 3. He says, I was intrigued by Baldur's Gate 3, but didn't expect to have it become such a force in my life, close to 200 hours in now. I've tried to get into D&D a few times, but always found it too slow. I have a hard time letting myself lean hard into the role-playing side of it all, etc. Baldur's Gate is a really amazing way to experience D&D in all its glory. This is great that he's like basically backing up what we're talking about. I'm on my third playthrough, and it's so different every time. Wow. I think my favorite aspect is that literally every line of dialogue is voice acted, and the script is so dynamic because of how choice-based it is. Can't recommend it highly enough to those on the fence or anyone who hasn't played it. So there we go, kind of enforcing our gateway into D&D style gameplay that Baldur's Gate 3 has. So sorry, Chris, I thought I had added you to the document. I'm glad I remembered it before we ended the show because I appreciate that. I think Baldur's Gate 3 is kind of like one of those milestone hallmark games of 2023 for sure. Along with Mario Wonder for the more casual game crowd, I think that's probably top on the list for a lot of people, which I need to definitely get back into. And, I ran out of words.
Oh no, too much mic time.
Exactly. My brain is super fried. With that note, I think it's probably time to start wrapping up the show. Thank everyone for writing in. Hope your 2023 was awesome, and I hope your 2024 is awesome. Some good games on the way we'll be talking about in future episodes of Embassy Exclusive. And like I said, keep an eye on the VG Embassy YouTube channel. Subscribe to it. That way, if I put anything out that's kind of podcast adjacent, any videos, YouTube shorts, Mile and I are kind of brainstorming about what kind of content to put on there. I think we might have some fun with it. We'll figure it out. We'll figure out how it goes and maybe have some guests appear on there as well. Maybe some appearances of Logan since he's desperate to be a YouTuber at this point. But as usual, you can head over to patreon.com/thevgembassy and check out our tiers and ways that you can help and fund the VG Embassy with all of the expensive hosting costs and motivate me to make more awesome content for you guys. As always, I'd like to share the names of all of my Patreon folk at the end of every show at our tourist level. Cameron Childs and the Phantomire, our VG Emissaries, Periodical, Chris Murray, Ganon11, Keyglyph, Kyle Kroll, Chris Myers, The Dyad, The Last Rican, and Professor Tom. Our audio attaché members Cameron Werma, Kung Fu Carlito, Muddle Madness, and Scott McElhone, and our special agent, Ryan Steele. All right, guys, next month, awesome episode 100 party time. I will see you then with a super special 100th episode, and we'll continue the party onto Embassy Exclusive at the end of February. Again, remember, subscribe to that Pixel Tunes Radio RSS feed or visit pixeltunesradio.com if you haven't already to grab the 10th anniversary reunion spectacular. Mike and I worked really hard on it, so we do hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next month.
Catch you later.
Bye.
Bye.